and welcome to Strangers in a Straight Land, a podcast of queer spoken word. My name is Kyle. I'm an author and wildlife biologist who grew up in Orange County, California. In this podcast, we'll be exploring my poetry, the writing process, and meaning behind these poems in relation to my life. I grew up in a conservative Christian community in Southern California and spent my whole youth in church. It was not a happy time in my life. As a queer person, I had to go through a lot of hardship, including conversion therapy, self-hatred, depression, and abuse. Poetry has long been the way I processed my internal turmoil and was one of the ways I learned to love myself and accept who I was. In this podcast, I'll share with you both that process and the poems that came out of it, as well as some of the most influential poets and other artists in my life and how they influenced my journey. This series is called Strangers in a Straight Land, as a bit of a playful reference to one of my favorite musicals growing up, Fiddler on the Roof. The main character, Tevye, misquotes, "As Abraham said, I am a stranger in a strange land," which of course Moses said, but it was always how I felt growing up, queer in a Christian community. Musical theater was a big influence on me. My mom ran a youth theater company at a Christian university. And in middle school, I was in Fiddler on the Roof. As I mentioned, it was a tough time of life, and the musical really resonated with the feelings I had of being a marginalized group, feeling like I didn't belong. I also was growing up in a religious tradition that seemed at odds with what I was feeling, a black sheep that was breaking the mold. And from Tevye's three daughters in the musical, we learned that some traditions can be bent, but there is a point where it's too far, and there are some things that they will not allow. I knew in my heart being gay was one of those things, and that I would lose my family, my community. So I decided then to keep it a secret and never allow myself to be like Havala in the musical, to be happy. In the end, I was right. When I finally gave up trying to deny who I was and who I loved, I lost my whole community. I've repaired a lot of the damage, but my life has never been the same since. And I remember the day I realized I couldn't keep trying to change myself to fit in, and that I had to leave. I felt like the people of Anatevka at the end of the musical as they're forced to leave their homes, looking back at the bittersweet pain of my childhood and thinking, soon I'll be a stranger in a strange new place, searching for an old familiar face from Anatevka. I belong in Anatevka. Tumble down, work a day. Anatevka, dear little village, little town of mine. Trigger warning. In this series, I will be talking about abuse, mental health struggles, and suicide.